Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler, Season 1, Episode 40. Under everybody's astonished gazes, Mu Chen's hand suddenly formed a strange seal. Afterwards, his eyes suddenly focused. A dazzling red light suddenly erupted from the sky behind Han and formed a fiery red spiritual array that was the size of a dozen or so zhang tall. A spiritual array? Numerous individuals stood up at the northern spiritual square. They watched the spiritual array behind Mu Chen's back with incredulous eyes. The people with keen vision could even tell that the powerful fluctuations within the spiritual array had definitely reached the level of a rank 1 spiritual array. God, Mu Chen actually arranged a spiritual array? He's actually a rank 1 spiritual array master? How is that possible? Even for a rank 1 spiritual array master, they would require some time to quietly arrange an array. However, he's in a battle right now. Moreover, he even closed his eyes earlier. But this is definitely a rank 1 spiritual array. How is this possible? Shocked cries rang out from the northern spiritual square. Everybody's eyes were filled with shock and confusion. It was apparent that they did not know how Mu Chen was able to do this. Not only were they shocked, even the territory lords in the seats at front were completely surprised. Liu Qingtian even straightened up his body and had an extremely ugly expression. He never thought that the boy from the Mu territory, aside from having a decent strength, would actually have such a surprising hidden card up his sleeves. So Mu Chen is actually a spiritual array master. No wonder you were so confident. Tang Shan gradually recovered from the shock and praised him loudly. Then he was somewhat puzzled and asked, however, how could he arrange an array this quickly even if he is a rank 1 spiritual array master? Mu Feng had a surprised expression as well. However, he quickly understood the reason behind it. He could not help but smile. Others might not be able to understand why Mu Chen could form a spiritual array this quickly, but he could guess vaguely why that happened. Is it the heart array state? It seems that Mu Chen is grasping and understanding the heart array state more and more. Mu Feng muttered to himself. That Mu Chen really hid his strength well. At the main platform, Principal Xiao also had a surprised expression. He could not help but smile. I never imagined that he was a rank 1 spiritual array master. Beside him, Teacher Mo also nodded his head. He had trained Mu Chen this long, yet he had not discovered it at all. This guy really knew how to conceal his hidden cards. Moreover, he isn't an ordinary spiritual array master. Mr. Hao's eyes flashed as he stared at the handsome boy on the stage. He could not conceal the shock within his voice. He seems to be able to enter the heart array state. Otherwise, it's absolutely impossible for him to close his eyes and arrange a spiritual array this quickly. Heart array state? Principal Xiao and the others trembled. Naturally, they have heard about this state before. They heard that even rank 3 spiritual array masters might not be able to enter that mysterious state. Yet Mu Chen was actually able to enter that state with his strength of a rank 1 spiritual array master. Ordinarily speaking, a peculiar fluctuation would emerge while arranging a spiritual array. However, they never expected that Mu Chen would arrange a spiritual array. Therefore, their attention was completely focused on the exchange between the two of them. But who would have thought? Interesting. Mr. Hao smiled slightly. His eyes remained tightly fixed at the stage. A spiritual array? On the stage, Liu Mubai's figure had completely stopped. He had an extremely pale expression as he stared at the circulating, fiery red spiritual array behind Mu Chen. The violent spiritual energy emitted out from that location had caused the air to constantly tremble. Mu Chen looked at the pale Liu Mubai and gently smiled as he exhaled slowly. He actually carried a mentality of hoping to be lucky as he arranged a spiritual array in combat. After all, this was extremely difficult to do. Although he had constantly attempted to understand the mysterious heart array state during this 1 month, he would still have to pay a big price if he made a mistake. But fortunately, he won this bet. The experience from the spiritual road had allowed him to gather his thoughts and focus completely. During the critical moments, he would not be distracted and remain calm like the water as he entered the mysterious heart array state. By borrowing its power, he had successfully arranged a spiritual array. Try out this feast that I've prepared for you. Mu Chen directed a smile towards Liu Mubai, and his eyes immediately turned sharp. His hand seals changed as he shouted out, Devouring Tiger Blaze Spiritual Array! Roar! Following Mu Chen's shout, A deep tiger's roar actually emitted out from the fiery red spiritual array behind him, as it's shown. This devouring tiger blaze spiritual art was a diagram array that Mu Chen had obtained from Wenling the night before he returned to the Northern Spiritual Academy a month ago. The power of this spiritual array was quite extraordinary. It required a total of 17 spiritual seals in order to arrange it. A month ago, Mu Chen did not have the ability to condense 17 spiritual seals. However, after a month of harsh training, he had finally succeeded. The power of this spiritual array was ranked in the top 3 amongst all the spiritual arrays that Wenling knew. Once it was released, even a spiritual rotation stage late phase would have to avoid its brilliance and power. Liu Mubai stared at the spiritual array filled with a violent spiritual energy. His hands slowly clenched together and coldness surged through his eyes. Roar! The fiery red spiritual array had become increasingly violent. In the next instant, a fiery red light swept out like lava and directly formed into a mighty flame tiger. Swish! The instant that this flame tiger had appeared, it shouted to the sky. With a burning flame and violent spiritual energy, it crossed through the skies and lunged towards Liu Mubai under many gazes. This attack was something that a spiritual rotation stage late phase individual would be afraid of. The flame tiger roared and heated winds blew. It seemed that the air was completely oppressed and fled away as it enshrouded Liu Mubai. Liu Mubai lifted his head and stared at the rapidly approaching flame figure. His face suddenly became extremely cold. "You think you can win with such a technique?" he muttered to himself. However, he did not move too much. The fiery red spiritual energy gushed out like fire as the flame tiger charged towards him. Ah! Within the northern spiritual square, everybody watched as Liu Mubai clashed together with the flame tiger. They exclaimed out loud, "Did this guy abandon himself to despair?" In the seats at front, Liu Qingtian smiled sarcastically when he saw this. Mu Chen also watched tightly at the location where the flames were raging. However, he frowned. In the next instant, he seemed to have felt something and quickly retreated backwards. Boom! A powerful spiritual energy fluctuation erupted out from within the center of the flames. The powerful spiritual energy actually forcibly scattered the raging flames away. What a powerful spiritual energy! This sudden turn of events stunned everybody. They hurriedly looked over and saw a figure wrapped with dense spiritual energy slowly walking out from within the flames. Liu Mubai's spiritual energy is actually even more powerful than an ordinary spiritual rotation stage late phase. A few individuals sensed the dense spiritual energy surging out from the figure's body and could not help but shout out loudly. So this Liu Mubai also had a hidden card up his sleeves. Su Ling, Tang Qianer, and the others turned slightly pale as they watched this scene. Spiritual rotation stage. Late phase, this Liu Mubai was truly a person who concealed himself completely. Mu Chen, you're not the only one that holds a hidden card. Dense spiritual energy enshrouded Liu Mubai. He felt the powerful spiritual energy within his body as his viper-like eyes locked itself onto Mu Chen, and he laughed. Mu Chen also stared at Liu Mubai. This guy really made a breakthrough during this 1 month and reached the spiritual rotation stage late phase. However, did you believe that a spiritual rotation stage late phase was the limits of my power? Liu Mubai smiled gently and had a cold smile. The eyes he used to look at Mu Chen became extremely mocking. I'll show you what is called an insurmountable gap. Although I haven't used it for a long time, did you all forget that I possess a spiritual pulse as well? Liu Mubai slowly spread out his hands. Afterwards, everybody was able to see lights slowly emerging on his body. These lights were like a soaring dragon as it flashed. With the emergence of these lights, Liu Mubai's spiritual rotation stage, late phase's spiritual energy fluctuation actually began to expand once again. Finally, under many astonished gazes, he had reached the pinnacle of a spiritual rotation stage late phase. At this moment, he had reached the limits of a spiritual rotation stage. Just who, among the spiritual rotation stage, could compete with him? The entire venue was completely silent. The only thing happening was Liu Mubai's dense spiritual energy spreading out in waves. The pressure from this spiritual energy even made the people near the stage feel a sense of pressure. Not only did Liu Mubai advance to the spiritual rotation stage, he even possesses a human-level spiritual pulse. It will be troubling now. Tang Shan sighed. There are probably only a few people who could compete with Liu Mubai within the spiritual rotation stage. Mu Feng's face sank. The boy from the Liu family wasn't that simple. He never expected that the rank 1 spiritual array that Mu Chen had arranged would be completely useless in front of him. I won't give you a chance to struggle. On the stage, Liu Mubai stared coldly at Mu Chen. His hands slowly clenched together and forceful waves of spiritual energy quickly gathered at the center of his palm. In the end, a dazzling sun seemed to emerge at the center of Liu Mubai's palm. Sensing the powerful spiritual energy at the center of Liu Mubai's palm, many people's hearts jumped. Is he planning to defeat Mu Chen ruthlessly? Solar Inferno Palm. Liu Mubai's body rushed into the air, and his spiritual energy poured out endlessly. His entire body seemed to have turned into a fiery light, while a fiery sun was tightly clutched at the center of his palm. It carried an extraordinary fluctuation as he charged furiously at Mu Chen, who was below him. The ground on the stage collapsed slightly due to the violent impact. Everybody watched flabbergasted at Liu Mubai's amazing offensive. Within the spiritual rotation stage, is there really someone who could block it? The outcome will be decided like this? Phew! Under numerous gazes, Mu Chen also took a deep breath. Then he actually slowly closed his eyes once again. His heart was calm like the water, and his great Pagoda Art began to furiously circulate. Within his aura sea, the spiritual energy wheel began to emit numerous lights. These lights gathered above it, and a vague black light tower with 9 levels slowly emerged. When this black light tower appeared, mysterious black lights began to slowly lit up within the depths of his body. At the same time, a vague black light tower appeared on the surface of Mu Chen's body. He suddenly opened his eyes and watched with razor-sharp eyes at the sun descending down from the sky. You have a spiritual pulse, I also have one. Furthermore, mine is much more powerful than yours. A fiery spiritual energy swept down violently from the sky. A dazzling sun emitted a powerful spiritual energy as it bombarded down like a meteorite towards the boy at the center of the stage. At this moment, dark black spiritual energy surged out from Mu Chen's body. Black lights emerged on the surface of his body and formed a blurry black light tower. Black lights spilled out from the light tower as it guarded Mu Chen's body. A rather mysterious fluctuation emitted out from it. When a black light tower suddenly emerged on the surface of Mu Chen's body, it also attracted a lot of attention. At that moment, many individuals had surprised expressions. As Mu Chen had brought surprise to them earlier when he arranged a spiritual energy, they did not dare to underestimate this boy. Mu Feng was startled slightly when he saw the black light tower. Then he immediately recalled something, and his eyes instantly narrowed. He clenched the chair's support with his hands while his heart was completely in a chaos. Although the black light tower was quite blurry, he had a deep impression of it. This was because Mu Chen's mother had used a similar measure before. However, the black light tower formed by her was many times stronger compared to the one formed by Mu Chen. Did Mu Chen's great Pagoda Art improve again? Mu Feng's eyes twinkled. Surprise surged out from the depths of his eyes. That brat was truly unpredictable. The great Pagoda Art that had once troubled him was flowing smoothly within Mu Chen's hand. This is... On the main platform, Teacher Mo was shocked as he stared at the black light tower on the surface of Mu Chen's body. The black light tower exuded a mysterious fluctuation. Although it appeared to be insignificant, nobody dared to underestimate it. Teacher Mo looked at the boy's figure and could not help but click his tongue. This boy really hid many cards up his sleeves. Swish! Just when ideas were appearing within everybody's hearts, the atmosphere within the stage had completely heated up. In the air, Liu Mubai witnessed the commotion caused by Mu Chen. However, the sneer on his face became increasingly rich. Right now, he had advanced to the spiritual rotation stage. Moreover, with the power of the spiritual pulse, there were few that could compete with him among the spiritual rotation stage. No matter what the current Mu Chen would do, it was nothing but a last-ditch effort. There would only be one outcome for him. That is to be stepped by him on the stage. You're not qualified to snatch the seated entry away from me. A cold light flashed through Liu Mubai's eyes. The fiery sun within the center of his palm swelled once again. It was evident that he was planning to use all his strength in this one attack to end this fight. Boom! A powerful spiritual energy pressure enveloped down from the sky. Mu Chen slowly raised his head and stared at the burning sun that was quickly descending down with his black eyes. He immediately bent his knees slightly as his eyes twinkled coldly. Mu Chen's body charged out as a dark black spiritual energy erupted out from within his body. A mysterious light pattern seemed to emerge above the black light tower. Outside of the stage, the countless individuals exclaimed loudly when they noticed Mu Chen actually taking the initiative to attack. They did not dare to blink as they watched the scene. The black and red lights flashed as they charged out like light beams. In the next instant, it collided fiercely against each other under the numerous gazes. Boom! A shocking sound rang out from midair. The black and red lights bloomed in the sky like fireworks. Crunch. The fiery red spiritual energy that formed a sun had fiercely smashed against the black light tower, and a crunching sound rang out. At the same time, Mu Chen's eyes peeked through the black light tower and stared tightly at the hideous-looking Liu Mubai. Break! Liu Mubai issued out a deep roar from his throat. His veins on his arms trembled as he pushed the spiritual energy within his body to the limits. He instilled spiritual energy crazily into the center of his palm. The collision between the two of them did not go as he expected. He thought that the light tower would crumple instantly. However, the black light tower that enveloped Mu Chen's body had a powerful defensive power, even when it seemed quite fragile. It actually withstood his fierce attack. This was not the result he wanted. You're only a spiritual rotation stage initial phase. What gives you the right to fight against me? Liu Mubai clenched his teeth tightly and retracted his arm. Then he fiercely smashed forward. The burning sun continuously bombarded the thin black light tower. Deep sounds spread out through the entire northern spiritual square. Buzz! The black light tower began to ripple under the crazy bombardment by Liu Mubai. Even Mu Chen, who was protected inside, was subjected to the vibrations and blood flowed out from his mouth. Mu Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and his eyes became cold. He furiously circulated the spiritual energy within his body. The spiritual energy wheel within his aura sea became increasingly brighter as he released all his spiritual energy unreservedly. At the same time, the mini-sized black light tower above the spiritual energy wheel also let out subtle buzzing sounds. This sound seemed to reveal traces of human pride. It was the feeling of being provoked by something mediocre. Swoosh! The mysterious black lights within the depths of Mu Chen's body became increasingly dazzling. It has an arrogance that belongs to itself. A trashy spiritual pulse actually dares to challenge its command. Above Mu Chen's body, the black lights from the thin black light tower suddenly erupted out. A long humming sound rang out, and the black lights that expanded out instantly covered the violent red sun. As this occurred, a roar emitted out from Mu Chen's mouth. He moved his feet and his body suddenly spun at a high speed. The black light tower that enshrouded his body had turned into a light spiral at this moment. Swish! As the black light tower rotated, the top part of the tower smashed fiercely into the burning sun. Then Liu Mubai was horrified to see cracks appearing on the burning sun that combined all his spiritual energy. Moreover, he was astonished when he felt a strange fluctuation passing over from the light tower. Under this fluctuation, the spiritual pulse within his body was actually suppressed. How is that possible? The spiritual pulse that was shining within his body had suddenly dimmed a little bit. Liu Mubai's face instantly changed. Break! However, when he was still astonished, a cold cry rang out from within the black light tower. The fiery sun instantly began to collapse and completely shattered apart. Moreover, the black light tower also crumbled and became like an illusion while the fiery sun shattered. Swish! A black figure charged out swiftly from the illusory light tower, and fist filled with black lights fired out. On the fist, two black light seals emerged. When the fiery sun shattered, Liu Mubai turned pale. The spiritual energy within his body had quickly vanished. He hurriedly crossed his arms in order to protect his body against the black fist that fiercely smashed over. Boom! The fist wrapped with the two black light seals landed on Liu Mubai's arm. A domineering and matchless energy exploded out like a flood. Liu Mubai felt a stinging pain emerging from within his arms. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew back awkwardly. However, the instant he was sent flying away, his leg also fiercely kicked Mu Chen's body. Dong! The two figures descended down from the air and landed severely on the ground. It created two holes on the stage as they spat out a mouthful of blood. A commotion rang out once again from outside the stage. They never expected both of them to fight to the point where they were both hurt. Mu Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth as he stood up unsteadily. He stared coldly at Liu Mubai, who was not far away. Although he felt immense pain, he ignored it completely and charged forward. He stuck up two fingers, and a golden light flashed dimly at his fingertips. Since the two of them have fought to this extent, they had almost completely depleted the spiritual energy within their bodies. Right now, it was a competition of whose willpower was stronger. Mu Chen charged directly at Liu Mubai. His face was expressionless, yet it gave off a sharp killing intent. From this killing intent, nobody doubted that he was really going to kill Liu Mubai. Seeing Mu Chen charged recklessly over to him, Liu Mubai's face became even paler. He stood up awkwardly and retreated 2 steps. The spiritual energy within his body was already completely depleted, and there was no way of him attacking anymore. From this scene, the outcome was already quite obvious. However, since Liu Mubai refused to admit defeat, the competition was not considered over. Mu Chen's body charged towards Liu Mubai, but just when his fingers were about to stab into the latter's throat, Liu Qingtian's face finally turned dark, and he shouted out, "Asshole, you dare!" As he cried out loudly, he actually charged out, and an immense spiritual energy fluctuation filled the entire venue. "Liu Qingtian, you dare touch my son?" Mu Feng also shouted out furiously, and his palms smashed against the armrest. His body also rushed over and appeared directly above Mu Chen. Then he smacked Liu Qingtian in anger. Bang! As the 2 spirit stage late-phase powerhouses fought fiercely in midair, the spiritual energy shockwave made Mu Chen and Liu Mubai fly backwards. Both of them immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. "Liu Qingtian, Mu Feng, what are you 2 doing?" Seeing both of them fight, Principal Xiao also shouted out in anger. His body moved and appeared between the 2 of them, while stopping both of them. As they noticed Principal intervening in this, Liu Qingtian and Mu Feng stopped as well. They glared fiercely at each other. That Mu Chen is too ruthless. It was evident that he was going to take Liu Mubai's life. Acting this ruthless in a duel, we must cancel his qualifications. Liu Qingtian gnashed his teeth and said, "Stop with your bullshot. You lost the battle, yet you don't want to lose the war? Just how shameless is your Liu territory?" Mu Feng said mockingly. "Both of you, if you both disturb the competition again, then don't blame the Northern Spiritual Academy for not giving face to you 2, Principal Xiao shouted in anger. Liu Qingtian gritted his teeth and lowered his voice and asked, "Then, who is the final victor of this match? Seeing that both of them are completely exhausted, why don't we consider this as a draw?" "Hush!" When these words were said, hushing sounds instantly rang out from outside the stage. If it wasn't for Liu Qingtian earlier, Mu Chen would have probably obtained the victory. Principal Xiao also frowned and said, "That will be determined by Mr. Hao." After he said this, he turned towards Mr. Hao, who was on the main platform, and cupped his hands as he asked, "Mr. Hao, in your opinion, what's the outcome of this match?" Hearing this, Mr. Hao said with a faint smile, "Mu Chen wins." "Why?" Liu Qingtian shouted out furiously. "Can't you see?" Mr. Hao pointed at the stage and said, "Mu Chen is still on the stage while Liu Mubai was sent out. Therefore, he lost." When Liu Qingtian heard this, he hurriedly looked down and his face turned dark. The shock wave caused by Mu Feng and him when they fought had actually sent Liu Mubai out of the stage. Although Mu Chen was lying down far away, he was still at the edge of the stage and did not drop out. Sounds of suppressed laughter rang out from outside the stage. Liu Qingtian really shot himself in the foot. Originally, he could still argue about the situation. However, in the end, he sent his son directly off the stage. This way, there was no hope on arguing about it. Mr. Hao slowly stood up and looked at the audience. His faint voice resounded through the sky. "Right now, I declare that the Northern Spiritual Academy's seated entry belongs to the East Branch's Mu Chen." At the Northern Spiritual Academy's East Branch, Su Ling, Tang Qianer, and the others were stunned. Then, thunderous cheers resounded out instantly. At the same time, countless individuals stood up outside of the stage, and a loud applause rang out. The earlier battle was magnificent. The strongest student within the Northern Spiritual Academy was well-deserved. Amongst the thunderous cheers, Mu Chen struggled to sit up. He had a pale expression and lifted his head to look at Mu Feng. Then he noticed the latter giving a thumbs up to him and immediately smiled. "What belongs to me will ultimately belong to me. Nobody can take it away." That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.